going on, Falcon fan? This work under come back at you with another video. So today we're gonna talk about what we heard today from some of the coordinators. We're gonna talk about a little couple roster moves, what that mean for the Falcons as the Falcons, move on into this offseason program. They got a couple more weeks before they go off to their break. But we're definitely got to hear from the defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, the quarterbacks coach, and the assistant head coach, and Jerry Gray. We'll talk about some additions on the field and off the field for the Atlanta Falcons as well. So guys, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to this channel. Please hit that notification bell so I know you guys want to talk about. Then let me make sure you share, hit the like button so my video can get throughout the YouTube universe and for everybody can hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So guys, with that being said, we'll get right into the content for today. First thing we'll talk about some Atlanta Falcon news, roster news, Falcon news, and some roster moves that the Atlanta Falcons have did. And we talked about this 90-man roster for the Atlanta Falcons, that it was going to be moving back and forth. We know once they left Ade Okendejigo, they had one spot left. But the Atlanta Falcons reported, between yesterday and today, they reported that they brought in two wide receivers, and wide receiver Dalen Baldwin, a guy who had a stint with the Minnesota Vikings last year before he released. He also was the Packers practice squad with the Cleveland Browns last year as well. However, was able not to stick with neither one of those teams, but he does definitely have another opportunity to be with the Atlanta Falcons this year. Looking at a guy like Dalen Baldwin, a guy that actually, bounced around in college. He was with Morgan State, he was with Jackson State, and his last stint, he was with the Michigan Wolverines. So a guy who's trying to find his way in college, and hopefully he can find his way in NFL, but he definitely get opportunity with this Atlanta Falcons organizations adding to that 90-man roster. He worked out for them, and obviously they like what they seen because they decided to bring him in to the fold. They also brought in wide receiver OJ Hilaire, played with Bowling Green and Alabama A&M, a guy that did not actually get drafted this year in this year's draft. So a guy who interesting, his stint with Bowling Green was a little bit more eventful. He did 2 seasons. His last season last year didn't have as many numbers he had the year prior. But both of these guys coming in, at the wide receiver position, only tells me one thing about this Atlanta Falcons organization is that it's going to be a totally different offense than we've seen in the last couple of years. You look at all the receivers coming in, how open they're going to be. We already talked about a lot of 11 personnel, so I definitely can see that. But bringing in both of these receivers, add to their receiver room. One thing about this receiver room, it's going to be a lot of guys that we probably haven't heard a lot about, that going to definitely have some opportunities. We know about the top guys that they brought in: Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Cardell Hard is still here as well. But from those guys, of course, Rondell Moore, Ray Cloud, guys as veterans that have been in this league for a while. But these other guys, along with our draftee Casey Washington, definitely gonna have opportunity to make this squad. We don't know how many receivers they're going to keep. Either 6 or 7. Usually, most of the time, they keep 6 receivers. I have seen, one season where the Atlanta Falcons did decide to keep another receiver that made it 7. So we'll just have to see. But a lot of these guys definitely, gonna have opportunity to put their game on tape for other teams get to see, and they have opportunity to make the practice squad as well. And if you recall, a lot of things what the Atlanta Falcons did last year, a lot of guys that they put on the practice squad actually, played in games and stuff. Learning this system, especially a guy like Baldwin coming from the Minnesota Vikings, probably have some familiarity with the system already. That's really going to be big for them. So both of those guys coming in now, when both of those guys added to the roster, that actually adds a 91st player to the roster. So with a corresponding move, the Atlanta Falcons had to go ahead and release tight end Tucker Fisk, guy who's been with the Atlanta Falcons for probably the last 3 seasons, off and on the practice squad, on the roster. Guy who's a great blocker, in the run game under the Arthur Smith scheme. But like I said, just look at the number of wide receivers they done brought in. It's going to be a totally different offense. In my opinion, I think it definitely have an opportunity to be an explosive offense as well. So, yes, a lot of guys that we're going to have to learn their names, not a lot of production in college and things like that. But adding depth at those positions is going to be huge for this Atlanta Falcons. Because we like I said, we know the big names, but with the addition of the change of the kickoff play as well, some of these guys might be able to find their way on the special teams as well. So coming in the room, getting an opportunity, that's all you can ask for. But Atlanta Falcon adding 2 new wide receivers and releasing Tucker Fisk is where the moves so far that the Atlanta Falcons have made, this offseason to get to that 90-man roster. With those 2 guys added, OJ Hilaire and Dalen Bowen, the Atlanta Falcons are now at a 90-man roster. What's going on, April Thomas? Other news, guys. Like we talked about, talent that Atlanta Falcons are actually bringing in on the field. Arthur Blank decided to add talent off the field as well, adding 4 members to the ownership group on a limited basis. Roseland Brewer, Dominic Dawes, we know that name's real familiar. 96 Olympics. Will Packer, who's a film director, and Rashawn Williams. All those guys, came to the Atlanta Falcons organization on the women ownership group. Arthur Blank introduced those guys yesterday, and you just like to see things like this. Adding, most of all these guys are minorities. Add them to that limited ownership group. Everybody that's on this team actually brings, a different flavor to the team as well. If you look at somebody like Rosalind Brewer, a corporate executive who served as a president and the CEO of Walgreens, Boots Allowance, Starbucks Corporation, and the president CEO of Sound Club. So she has a lot of experience, in business, and somebody definitely could be, add some kind of, different, point of view, different skill set, something that can help the Atlanta Falcons organization grow, off the field, especially, they can bring some new ideas to help the team as a whole. But you like the diversity that Arthur Blank, and we know that Arthur Blank, pretty much for the most part, is really thoughtful when he started to make decisions and things like this. So bringing Rosalind Brewer in, Dominique Dawes, we just talked about it, 3-time, Olympic gold medalist winner. In the 96 Olympics. She's the CEO of her own gymnastic academy. So once again, somebody who's already is successful in their line of work, coming in and adding that to the group as well. Will Packer is an Emmy-nominated film maker and producer whose movie has grossed more than $1 billion worldwide and founded his own anonymously named production company. So, like I said, adding people to the fold that already has success elsewhere and bringing that talent into the organization is really, really huge. And then last but not least, Rashawn Williams is a family office investor, venture capitalist, and financial literacy activist with over 170 investments to his name. So all these guys got different skill set, different talent, different voices that's going to be added to the group to help Atlanta Falcons, organization grow outside and in the community as well. And like I said, Arthur Blank is really thoughtful when he think of do about things like that. But that's good. So you like to see the organization, going in different directions. You already seen what organizations have done, just by the hires they made. Got a black general manager for the first time, the first black permanent head coach, in the Atlanta Falcons organization as well. We know he was here as an intern, but he's back on a permanent basis. So you like the diversity, like to see how things are going in, in certain directions. But for Atlanta Falcons, is all about what they're able to do on the field. At the end of the day, they got to be successful, you know, and start to be a winning organization. And that's every move that you make, you should always, be thoughtful and have that in mind. So there you have it, guys, with the news of today, the roster moves that we have. So welcome to the team. Dalen Baldwin and OJ Alaire. And good luck to Tucker Fisk. More than likely might end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers here, before we know it. So there you have it, guys. The news of the day and the roster moves that Atlanta Falcons have made so far this year. I mean, this off season as of late, right? Because and be more to come. So let's get into some of the coordinators, what some of they had to say today, which I love to hear our coaches talk about what's going on. Just to give a little insight, where they're at right now. We all know it's really early in the off-season program. Most teams not really 100% what they have because no physicality, and we know when it comes to NFL football, the whole game is all about being physical and things like that. But at this time of the year, it's really just about especially for the Atlanta Falcons, learn the new schemes, learn the new communications, getting down and things like that. So it's more about what you're able to do from a mental standpoint during this time of the season. And, listen to the coaches, kind of see how these guys are grasping, how they feel right now, these last couple of weeks before they go into the break, before they get in for training camp. So, just listening to our defensive coordinator, what Jimmy Lake had to say today. What's going on, Gatbox? What's up? What's up, family? But just listen to the defense coordinator today. He really emphasized, and what they really want to emphasize, what he pretty much said in his press conference. You want to be able to make the playbook to read easy for these guys, being able for them to play, fast. And I hate to say it the way Dan Quinn, but you want to play fast, physical, right? Without a lot of thought, you want to be able to move fast. And at the end of the day, unless these guys got to think, they understand what they need to be doing on each play. They can play fast because that's what you want every player to do on offense and defense. Be able to play fast and move fast and react and get to the ball, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So, making the playbook easier. I do like the way he mentioned that, the big emphasis is on the coaching staff, right? The coaching staff need to make sure that it's not too complicated for the players. And if it is, that means they're not doing what they need to do because players have to think a lot on the field before they're able to react, to a play. They're always not going to be in the right spot, right? So the easier it is for them to digest what they're trying to learn, it's going to be better for them. So I like, the mindset of what Jim Lake had to say about that. And he really said if it's not as easy as they want, they know they need to change it up and make it more understandable for the guys. One thing that I did like, they talked about pass rush because we know this is going to be a big hot topic for the Atlanta Falcons, even when the season start, because the Atlanta Falcons, did not really address it with a big name guy or, a first round pick or anything like that from a pass rush standpoint. The emphasis on that is always going to be talked about to Atlanta Falcons. We know the history. We know what it's all about. The last time Atlanta Falcons have a dominated pass rush. But, one thing Jim Lake mentioned was that's what implementing defense is all about, coming up with that scheming things. Pressure is not just going to come from the outside. You mentioned coming from the inside as well, coming from the linebackers, coming from the safeties, coming from the corners. So what's up, Brown people? So, things like that, you definitely going to be able to, to see the pressure coming from all over the places. And I don't think that was a surprise. We saw a little bit of that around Nielsen last year as well. Richie Grant, I think he had about 2 or 3 sacks himself coming from that safety standpoint. But, being able to create pressures, not just from, your front seven, you'll be able to have a pre-pressure everywhere, safeties, corners, interior, I think, which is probably one of the biggest things that from a pressure standpoint that quarterbacks do not like, right? The pressure in the interior, right? The outside pressure, because outside pressure is always something, quarterbacks can kind of manipulate, especially if they got a clean pocket, right? They just step up in the pocket and deliver the ball. But when pressure's coming up in your face, right, um, it's hard to step out, right? Because you got to remember those tackles are trying to hold their line, right? And if you have to step, you want to step up in the pocket, good clean pocket. That's all a lot of quarterbacks like to do. Step left, step to the right, especially a lot of pocket passer quarterbacks. So bringing the inside pressure is going to be huge. But Jimmy Lake mentioning pressure's coming from all over the place is a good thing. They're going to scheme that up. Um, I like that, and you know Jesse Bates mentioned yesterday he don't think that the team is done. We just talked about some of the roster moves they made. They might add more, but honestly, right now, guys, I don't think you can actually tell what you have from a pass rush, and what they're doing right now in OTAs because there's no contact. You don't know what you got. So either they're not satisfied with what they've seen on film, or they are satisfied. It depends on if they decide to bring in other bodies, to be somebody to rush the passer. We talked about some of the free agents, from the standpoint. Unique Ngakwe still out there. Carl Lawson still out there. Some guys that they maybe could consider. We just have to see what they decide to do. But it is some guys still off on the market. Them and the Atlanta Falcons want to go that route. So um, one interesting note to talk about defense. We see Contavious Street number is number 93. We know who number that was last year. So that's a telltale sign that we will not see Calais Campbell back here with this Atlanta Falcon team. So we'll just have to see about that. Doesn't look like it. Just looking at Contavious Street getting that number 93 number. Brian People say today was the first time I heard Jerry Gray voice. Oh, that was the first time you heard it. I mean, he talked a lot last season. Um, I think he talked every Thursday. Um, you know, as assistant head coach because he went in right before Ryan Nielsen did. So he taught a lot last year. But you know, talk about Jerry Gray. Some of the things he talked about was the belief that he had in Mike Hughes, which really was really interesting to me. What Jerry Gray had to say about cornerback Mike Hughes, and what he also had to say about the offer. Right, two guys that right now we figured that penciled in as the slot for the offer and that number two corner in Mike Hughes. He mentioned that he had Mike Hughes when he was with the Minnesota Vikings, and he think that he's back to form. And we'll just have to see, right? I can say one thing: Mike Hughes, was a good tackler last year. Raheem Morris emphasized that making tackles, but we're going up against some pretty good solid receivers this upcoming season. You look at that receiving core in Philadelphia in week 2 on Monday Night Football. Of course, you got Jordan Pickens in week 1, but we got a couple of duos, but we got Evans and Godwin in Tampa. So we got to be able to solidify that defensive backfield. But it sounds like Jerry Gray and the coaching staff right now is satisfied with what these guys have shown. Coming in this offseason program. It's like I stated, from a defensive standpoint, it's really hard to gauge some of these guys. I mean, they're not even allowed to really make contact with the receivers right now. And then you see the highlights and our receivers catching deep passes from Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix and things like that. But right now, the defense players, not even really allowed to contest and go up and make contact with these guys because they're trying to keep everybody healthy. And I think it's in line with what we see in the NFL rules anyway. So it's really interesting to be able to tell, what we have from a defensive backfield until this season starts, man. Till training camp starts in July 27. So that's really going to be interesting to see what we're going to do. And then the last thing Jimmy Lake talked about, he was asked about the defensive line rotation. How could he work that, because we are deep at that position from a defensive line standpoint. He talked about I mentioned, it's really hard to to dictate that right now because of the lack of physicality you can have. The number of reps that a guy can go. We did see that a lot of times that Grady and David to go a one series and then they'll come out and the start of the next series, and then if it got into the red zone on third down stuff, they would come back in for big important plays. We'll see if that's something that Jimmy Lake adopts, or he's going to depend on having these guys out there for the majority of the time. I can't tell you, looking at the depth of this defensive line, are fresh bodies, rotating in and out. It would be a good thing, and if you can keep the same kind of intensity from that front seven when you do rotate, that would be great. So we'll definitely see how that pans out when it comes to training camp. But for the most part, the main thing right now for the defense is, learning this new scheme. He did mention some of the stuff that they had in there last year. They're going to keep some of that stuff, so we'll be interested to see that. We do know for this defense, it's going to be a base 3-4. They're going to play a little bit more zone, less man. I think that might play in the hands, play good for some of these other guys out there. We heard Raheem Morris talk about our linebackers yesterday from a defensive standpoint, and he mentioned that sometimes having all three of those guys on the field at the same time. He likes Troy Anderson's speed. His communication has got a lot better from last year to this year. So those are kind of things that you want to hear from your coordinators, from a defensive side of the ball right now, because you're not going to be able to glean a lot except for what they're learning from a mental standpoint and being able to understand the keys and reads when they look at the playbook. That can be shown on film, right? Um, when it's motion here, what do you need to be lined up? Um, Linebacker needs to know what the slot corner is doing, what the outside corner is doing, what the safety behind him is doing, right? Because just like Ellis said yesterday, is the fact that that linebacker is the quarterback on the defense side of the ball. So he needs to get his defensive lineman lined up right. The communication between guys like Jesse Bates and the linebackers, those the leaders on their defense, along with Grady and David, it's going to be huge. So you love to see that. The last thing about Jerry Gray, what he said was talked about having a team, a player led team. You can already hear that from Jesse Bates. He mentioned that Jesse Bates is really taking ownership on that. He mentioned that a guy like Raheem come in and quiz these guys to see do they understand. And one of the things he mentioned about Raheem Morris, which I thought was kind of fascinating, was the fact that Raheem already telling these guys the vision he have for them, where he see them, their potential, where they could be, by the start of the season, some point in the season, somewhere like that, and to visualize that, right? Because that's a lot of times, a lot of players don't realize their potential and where they could be. So if you put a goal out there, and be able to see it and say, this is how I see how good you can be in this league, right? That's how you create those guys to go out and have one of those breakout seasons, something like that. So from a defensive standpoint, you like what you're hearing so far. Not a lot to glean because no pads on, no contact being made. The biggest thing for those guys is the mental reps, of course, and to stay healthy. All right. We also heard from our new, freshly first time offensive coordinator in Zach Robinson as well. Um, I think the biggest thing that I took from what Zach Robinson had to say is the the Kirk Cousins effect. We talked about Kirk Cousins on Monday, talked about his impact, but Kirk Cousins' ability to to already come in and understand this offense is really going to be huge for Zach Robinson, right? Because now when Zach Robinson is teaching the offense to the offensive players, Kirk Cousins, who's actually going to be running this offense, can go ahead and add to it and put what he sees for everybody can start to be on the same page. He mentioned about Kirk Cousins, when it first came out, he had a book and he just opened up and told the whole offense where he's trying to go and what he want to do. That is really, really, really good to hear from what our quarterback one is going to be. And I think it's going to actually help Zach Robinson grow a lot because of what Kirk Cousins himself is already being able to bring to the table. So those are kind of things that when you hear Zach Robinson talk about Kirk Cousins, and it's good things to hear, right? I mean, it's nothing new. I'm pretty sure most veteran quarterbacks are really good in the classroom, understand the systems that they're in. But a guy like Kirk Cousins that been in this system pretty much his whole career. He mentioned how he's able to read defenses, what some things that if you look at this, what they might be able to get from this and that. This is going to be huge, guys. It really is. You like it. You like to see the fact that he's so engaged. And I keep saying it, man. I keep saying it. The drafting of Michael Penix is probably going to even push Kirk Cousins to even play even better than we could hope for, right? Because the guy's talking about playing into his 40s, and the idea that the Falcons went out and drafted a quarterback, he's trying to prove that, yeah, you wasted your draft pick, right? So, and he has opportunity to do that. He has the weapons. He has the good, solid offensive line. He knows the playbook. I feel like he's right now he's has sped up the process for this team because he already knows majority of the playbook. Now, this is some new things that came over from Los Angeles that Robinson is implementing that Curtis have to learn. But for the most part, even those things can be translated to some things he probably did in Minnesota. His recent stint, there. So it's going to really be huge. What Kirk Cousins is going to be able to bring. Once again, we talking about the impact of what he can do. And so much talk for bringing in, talking about our rookie quarterback when our starting quarterback is just everything that we hoped for when we talked about when we signed him back in March in the first place. So you have to love that. He mentioned that Kurt has not missed a snap. Well, that was actually our TJ Yates, our quarterback coach. He's been out there consistently the whole off season. So, Michael's not going to get a chance to do number one snaps. Does not seem like it, right? The next thing he talked about is once again, and it's starting to be a theme, guys. Where when we hear the these week to week talks and the use of Kyle Pitts was brought up again. It was asked by Zach Robinson, what we can see for Kyle Pitts this upcoming season, and he pretty much Kyle Pitts is gonna be all over the field, right? The main thing, he's gonna use Kyle Pitts as a tight end, so he's gonna inline. Kyle Pitts is going to be a willing blocker, right? But we know that's not his bread and butter. But so he's going to use him as spread out as in in the receiver role as well. Inline blocker, Kyle Pitts going to do it all. So he's kind of learning two positions right now, which is good. I think Kyle Pitts can handle it, but I think the use of Kyle Pitts, and I keep saying this because people forget, how dynamic he was in his first season, and it wasn't every game, right? He had breakout games here and there, and that's expected from a rookie. But the flashes he showed when he had a competent quarterback were just huge. Going into his fourth season, I think is really going to play dividends for him, especially being a season removed from the injury that he sustained a couple seasons ago. So this is going to be really good for Kyle Pitts, and I believe his usage is going to be good. We talked about breakout players and things like this. I think he could be one of those guys. And that's what you want. You want to be able to see your number 4 overall pick in a draft, live up to his potential at some point of time. Um, the last thing to talk about is our rookie Michael Penix, because he did get drafted number 8, and his growth is going to be huge this year. Just sitting behind a guy like Kirk Cousins on the professionalism that he shows. They have a great quarterback room. Sounds like, listen to quarterback coach T.J. Yates, and some of the things that the collaboration that they sees. All these guys played in the NFL. You think about Zach Robinson, who was a quarterback. You see about T.J. Yates, who's a quarterback. You got Kurt, you got Taylor, and then you got a young Michael Penix, who have played a lot of quarterback as well. His term in college. So with all those things that from that quarterback room, it's going to be huge. And they got an ultimate professional in there leading the charge, and Kirk Cousins. So Michael Penix this year is going to be huge for him, because we just talked about how well Kirk Cousins knows the playbook. Well, Michael Penix probably is. It's a lot of a lot to probably to grasp, you know, right off the bat. So it's a great thing that he does not have to come out and play right away, because this playbook is going to be extensive. One thing that Raheem Morris mentioned, and um, Zach Robinson mentioned today, um, was the install it's not being sped up, right? It's going at a pace where these guys can get it, break it down. He don't want to rush he don't want to rush his coaches, right? He want them to install it, make sure everybody understand before they move on. I think having Kurt there is definitely helping Zach Robinson in that aspect, because you know you want to. If anybody needs to know the offense more than anything, it's the quarterback, right? So having him being able to do that, you know, and help teach the offense to the O line, understand the protections, right? Um, Getting the receivers on the same page, how deep he want their depth, right? We heard Darnell Mooney saying when he come out his break, the ball's already there. So things like that, the timing of this offense is going to be huge. Um, and one thing, it was crazy. We have not even talked about the running game. We talk about, passing game and receivers and things like that. But we have to remember, that we do have Bijan Robinson and um, Tyler Algier in the backfield, which is just insane to think about. You know, um, talking about this passing attack and how we're going to be able to be more explosive and dynamic in the passing game. But to think that we do have a two-headed monster like what we have in the backfield is just it's crazy to think. How this offense should be really, really good, man. It should be good. I just don't see why not. We only thing I can say, we just need an offensive line to play like they have played these last couple seasons. More now. You got a more passing quarterback, so pass protection is gonna have to be a little bit better from that standpoint. But just looking at this offense, looking at the pieces we have, listening to what Zach Robinson is about to say, how it's going right now, the installs, how much much you know enlightenment that Kirk Cousins had brought to the offensive room about what he sees and what he wants to do with his offense. It's just outstanding. So um, they got a couple. I think they got to practice tomorrow. They think they'll take a week off. Then they come in for mandatory mini camp, right? So we'll start to see guys here. Um, right now, it's not a big deal to worry about injuries and things like that. Who's not out there? We know Grady's still, slow rolling it back. And I don't think it's him. It's probably more, the timetable they put on him to come back to make sure he's 100%. Um, we heard about Bijan ankle. I don't think that's an issue at all. But just having him get ready. Should be out there for mandatory minute count in a couple of weeks as well. So, these just are some of the things that we're definitely looking to see from from this time of the season. Um, it may seem like it's not a big deal, right? These guys putting in the installs, learning the plays. The whole big thing about this time of the year is when they get to training camp, they can hit the ground running because all the installs been done, right? They take 4 weeks off. Hopefully, those guys are studying. Zach Robinson mentioned that, but when they come back, they can do recall really quick and get right into the game plan because starting um, August, what should be on everybody's mind is Pittsburgh Steelers, right? That's what we're thinking about. Getting ready for game one of the season, right? And cleaning up all the things and installs and stuff that we had mistakes on. And let's see who really want to play some football because that's when the physicality starts to take its place as well. So that's some of the things we got to do. Woke Jones says, I'm calling it. Our record is 10-7. Um, that's a good record. I have not did the win and loss yet. I'm waiting. Um, I'm gonna wait probably right before training camp before I put it out. The win and loss record for me because I want to honestly for me I want to see if the if they make any more moves yet, right? Um, I want to see if Eddie Goldman's going to stick around. Right? He so far so good. He's been here. Training camp hasn't started yet. We know how high to get in the summertime, so we're going to see if he's going to tap out again. Um, but things like that. If they're going to add more defensive backs, we don't know. We'll just have to see. But you know, guys, pretty much that's what we heard today. You love to hear from the coaches, other coaches beside our head coach, to see how things progressing. Um, just the little things, and that's why I like talking about this because it might not seem, um, that important right now, but the little things that they talked about, if they execute right and get into the chemistry, the player led team, all those things they talked about. Um, Seeing the vision that the head coach has for you, all those things. If during this time of this off season, if they could, take all that stuff, ball it up, be ready to put it in for training camp, um, it should be good to go. So can't wait to see what this Atlanta Falcon team get to do. John says, where the corner, I'll be in Atlanta November 3rd against the Cowboys. We need to hook up, no doubt. Just let me know. I will be there. It's gonna be a whole bunch of damn Cowboy fans there. So um, let me know, man. Let me know. Hopefully we be 3-0 by then. How about that? November 3rd. Let's see. No. That's way down the line. Hopefully we be undefeated. I don't know. I haven't looked at the schedule like that yet to see what we can get out of there. Um, Terry T said, "Kono, did you catch that running back Carlos Washington over the middle? Who is that guy? He's our fourth string running back, maybe fifth string. We haven't seen our rookie out there yet because he's recovering from an injury. But Carlos Washington been with the squad a couple of seasons, so um, and Bijan's not out right now, so he's pretty much he's probably getting either second or third string snaps behind Tyler, and Avery Williams. I seen him back out there, but between those guys, but yeah, Carlos Washington been with the squad a minute. We just haven't seen him, get any shine because our running back, our backfield is so good. So, um, but yeah, he's been with the squad a couple of years now, and probably more than likely have an opportunity to stick around again on the practice squad. Um, that's just how it is. But yeah, that was outstanding catch. Um, Keep in mind, you saw who was right there in his face when he caught it. Jesse Bates was right there, but it was a game, some contact. maybe he wouldn't have caught that ball. So, like I said, the offense always gonna look good. The good thing about what I like from what we see from the offensive standpoint is that the accuracy down the field from our quarterbacks. They're really connecting. We haven't seen a lot of throws from Michael Penix, down the field, but every throw we pretty much seen that they're showing anyway, because we know nobody's perfect, but the passes that we have been seeing from Kirk Cousins being spot on. And the interesting thing about that is last season, one of the things that a lot of people was really concerned about is the lack of deep passes, that lack of deep pass connections that Desmond Ritter had last year. It was a huge thing, and I'm on here like, man, he's gonna get, I'm because I'm a glass kind of half full kind of guy. I'll be honest with you guys, but it's just night and day because last year, I don't know if we could, how many videos we could show down the field deep passes from our quarterback, and this year, we probably seen what 3 or 4 already. Um, just in this OTA period. So that's huge. That's really huge, to be able to see things like that. So, um, sky's up, man. Sky's the limit. I can't say one thing, and I know a lot of people mention this is the strength of schedule. Got the easiest strength of schedule. And do not buy into that because I'm looking at the first 4 or 5 games. That's not an easy schedule. So I don't know what they're talking about, but you know, we're definitely going to come out the gate tested early. Uh, Pittsburgh is no slouch, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Um, we know that R.E. Smith going to try to run the ball down our throat. It's no secret about that. He wants to run the ball. So, and you can say what you want to say. He does scheme up good run game. So it's going to be important for our Atlanta Falcons to be ready for that in that week 1 matchup. So guys, that's all I have today. Let me know what you think about of course our 2 receivers that we got, Dalen Baldwin and OJ Alaire. Not a whole lot, from an NFL standpoint. Go back and look at their college games and see if some potential. Never know, could find a diamond in the rough, guys. That's what it is. And like I said, good luck to Tucker Fisk. Had to release him when the Cards won the move to get us to 90 man. And then congratulations to our 4 new limited guys they added to Arthur Blank added to the honor group, and Rosalind Brewer, Dominic Dawes, Will Packer, and Rashawn Williams. Um, to see what they'll be able to bring to this organization and make it better. So, congratulations to them as well. But guys, that's how I have it. If you have not seen the interviews today from like I said, our coordinators, our assistant head coach, and our quarterback coach, definitely go take a look at it. And please put your comments in what you thought about what they had to say. Maybe you heard something different than what I heard, and either good or bad. So that's all I have. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.